Alright, bro, I did it again. I said again. God fucking it. Anyways, listen, I'm gonna be going over, or listen if you want to, I don't really give a fuck, but I'm gonna be going over module point 13 for the first fucking, I can't remember what it's called. The first, I don't know, for, so point 13, 0.13, okay? Then I'm probably gonna go over 1.1 and 1.2. We'll see how far I go. And, yeah, anyways. Let me pull up my Visual Studio real quick for in case there's like a question or something I want to explain. Sorry, I was going over the math from the other video about game hacking. Let me just delete this. Okay. All right. So the following program is designed to print the name of the language standard your compiler is currently using. Copy and paste compile and run this program to validate that your compiler is using the language standard you expect. Print standard CPP. Okay, so this program prints the C++ language standard you're currently using, freely redistributable, courtesy of learncpp.com. That should include IO streams, so it makes a constant integer num standards equals 7. C++ 26 standard code is a placeholder since the exact code won't be determined until the standard is finalized. Makes a const along standard code array of num standards equal to all this random shit. Okay, I'm not even gonna. I don't even know why I'm reading through this, bro. Am I retarded? You're probably using C++ 20 language standard code. Okay, cool. Which I know that because I go to my properties. That's what I set to. Let's just get rid of this. All right. Okay. Builder runtime issues. If you get any errors, okay, we don't need to worry about that. Oh, I guess that's over for that one. All right. Statements in the structure of a program. Chapter introduction. Welcome to the first primary chapter of these C++ tutorials. Finally, we're into actual C++. In this chapter, we'll take a first look at a number of topics that are essential to every C++ program. Because there are quite a few topics covered, we'll cover most at a fairly shallow level, just enough to get by. The goal of this chapter is to help you understand how basic C++ programs are constructed. By the end of the chapter, you'll be able to write your own simple programs. In future chapters, we'll revisit the majority of these topics and explore them in more detail. We'll also introduce new concepts that build on top of these. In order to keep the lesson links manageable, topics may be split over several subsequent lessons. If you feel like some important concept isn't covered in a lesson, it's possible that it's covered in the next lesson. Statements. A computer program is a sequence of instructions that tell the computer what to do. A statement is a type of instruction that causes the program to perform some action. Statements are by far the most common type of instruction in C++ program. This is because they are the smallest independent unit of computation in the C++ language. In that regard, they act much like sentences do in natural language. When we want to convey an idea to another person, we typically write or speak in sentences, not in random words or syllables. In C++, when we want to have our program do something, we typically write statements. Most but not all statements in C++ end in a semicolon. If you see a line that ends in a semicolon, it's probably a statement. In a high-level language such as C++, a single statement may compile into many machine language instructions. For advanced readers, there are different kinds of C++ statements in C++: declaration statements, jump statements, compression statements, compound statements, selection statements, iteration statements, and try blocks. By the time you're through with this tutorial series, you understand what all these are. Sweet. Functions of the main function. In C++, statements are typically grouped into units called functions. A function is a collection of statements that get executed sequentially in order from top to bottom. As you learn to write your own programs, you'll be able to create your own functions and mix and match statements in any way you please. We'll show how in a future lesson. Rule: every C++ program must have a special function named main, all lowercase letters. When the program is run, the statements inside of main are executed in sequential order. Programs typically terminate, finish running after the last statement inside function main has been executed, though programs may abort early in some circumstances or do some cleanup afterwards. Functions are typically written to do a specific job or perform some useful action. For example, function name max might contain statements that figure out which of two numbers is larger. A function named calculate grade might calculate a student's grade from a set of scores. Function name print employee might print an employee's information to the console. We will talk a lot more about the functions soon, as they are most commonly used organizing tool in a program. Nomenclature. When discussing functions, it's fairly common shorthand to append a pair of parentheses to the end of the function's name. For example, if you see the term main or do something, this is shorthand for functions name main or do something respectively. This helps differentiate functions from other things with names such as variables without having to write the word function each time. In programming, the name of a function or object, type, template, etc. It's called an identifier. Dissecting Hello World. Now that you have a brief understanding of what statements and functions are, let's return to our Hello World program and take a high-level look at what each line does in more detail. Why am I running out of breath, bro? What the fuck? Okay. So hashtag include IOStream. This includes a library IOStream, which is pretty self-explanatory. Int, so an integer. So that means, so this basically means the type of the function, which main, so main returns an integer. So we have to return an integer at the end of it. So we return 0. Standard count hello world, which means using a standard library or a standard namespace. Cout, which is character output, and then less than operators or output operators, which basically, and then you have in quotations, which makes this a string. This is hello world exclamation point with a semicolon to end off the line. So that means this is a statement. It's also a statement. And yeah, the line 1 is a special type of line called a preprocessor directive. This hashtag include preprocessor directive indicates that we like to use the contents of IOStream library, which is part of the C++ standard library that allows us to read and write text from / to the console. In this line, in order to use standard cout on line 5, excluding this line would result in a compiler on line 5 as the compiler wouldn't otherwise know what standard cout is. Line 2 is blank and ignored by the compiler. This line exists only to help make the program more readable to humans by separating the hashtag include preprocessor directive, the subsequent parts of the program. Line 3 tells the compiler that we're going to define a function whose name identifier is main. As you learned above, every C++ program must have a main function, or it will fail to link. This function will produce a value whose type is int, an integer. Lines 4 and 7 tell the compiler which lines are part of the main function. Everything between the opening curly braces on line 4 and the closing curly braces on line 7 is considered part of the main function. This is called the function body. It's also known as a block, whatever's in between these curly braces is like the block. Line 5 is the first statement within function main and is the first statement that will execute when we run our program. Standard cout, which stands for character output, and the lesson operators allow us to display information on the console. In this case, we're displaying the text hello world. The statement creates the visible output of the program. Line 6 is a return statement. When executable program finishes running, the program sends the value back to the operating system in order to indicate whether it ran successfully or not. Particular return statement returns integer value of 0 to the operating system, which means everything went okay. It's the last statement in the program that executes. All these programs we write will follow this general template or a variation on it. Author's notes. If parts or all the above explanation are confusing, that's to be expected at this point. This is just to provide a quick overview. Subsequent lessons will dig into all of the above topics with plenty of additional explanation examples. You can compile and run this program yourself, and you will see that it outputs the following to the console hello world. If you run into issues compiling or executing this program, check out lessons. Got that. Syntax and syntax errors. In English, sentences are constructed according to specific grammatical rules that you probably learn in English class in school. For example, normal sentences end in a period. The rules that govern how sentences are constructed in language is called syntax. If you forget the period and run two sentences together, this is a violation of the English language syntax. C++ is a syntax too. Rules are about how your programs must be constructed in order to be considered valid. When you compile your program, the compiler is responsible for making sure your program follows the basic syntax of the C++ language. If you violate a rule, the compiler will complain when you try to compile your program and issue you a syntax error. Let's see what happens if we omit the semicolon on line 5 of the hello world program like this. Feel free to compile this form program yourself. Visual Studio produces the following error. The compiler may generate an error message with different wording. Error C2143 missing semicolon before return. So it just tells you where it's missing. So there must be a semicolon route in this line if it was a return statement. Compiler is telling you that it encountered a syntax error on line 6. It was expecting a semicolon before the return statement, but it didn't find one. Although the compiler will tell you which line of code it was compiled when it encountered the syntax error, the thing that needs to be fixed may actually be on a previous line. In this case, we've conveniently, or conventionally, wait, and in this case, we'd conventionally place a semicolon at the end of line 5. Syntax errors are common when writing a program. Ooh, so I was cracking my arm. You can try deleting characters or even whole lines from the hello world program to see different kinds of errors that get generated. Try restoring the missing semicolon at the end of line 5 and then deleting lines 1, 3, 4, see what happens. The quiz time. The following quiz is meant to reinforce your understanding of the material presented above. What is a statement? A statement is anything that ends with a semicolon. Statement instruction in a computer program that tells you the computer to perform an action. Oh, okay. Well, never mind. What is a function? A function is a block of code that is exited when it's called upon. Let's see what it is. Function collects in statements that execute sequentially. Okay. Guess I'm 0 for 2. What is the name of the function that all programs must have? That would be main. Program is run. Where does execution start? The main function. Okay. What symbol are statements in C++ often ended with? Semicolon. What is a syntax error? An error in the grammatical practices of fucking C++ standard. Syntax error is a compiler error that occurs at compile time when your program violates the grammar rules of the C++ language. What is the C++ standard library? Okay. What was it again? IOStream. The library file is a collection of precompiled code that is packaged up for reuse in other programs. C++ standard library is a library that shifts the C++ additional functionality to use in your programs. Yeah, which is the IOStream that we included. Anyways. Okay, this is a fucking long one. Okay, I'm just gonna call it here for now, because I'm fucking tired.